Right, hi chums. I've got a question here. This is about wood turning, so anybody has picked up think this is a gardening video, I'm really sorry, but this is another one of my vices, and I need some advice. So this has been basically directed towards the guys on a forum called Wood Turners Resource. So here's my problem, guys. Okay, that's a piece of laurel that I used to make an Irish wedding goblet, which is this. Okay, now I've got a slight problem with this. The base. When I did the bowl is three and well, hold on, maybe there's the base, right? The base is 3.5 inches in diameter, but the bowl is less, right? There's 3/16 of an inch difference between the diameter of the foot and the diameter of the bowl. Now, what my question is this: is it okay to leave that as it is without reducing the size of the foot? That's my problem, because when I looked at goblets anywhere else, it basically said all the goblets had the base was either the same size as the diameter of the bowl or slightly less. But I've discovered something else in my travels. I realized why it looked okay when I was doing it, because a chalice has got a wider base than a bowl for stability. So basically I've made a chalice instead of a goblet. But what I'm asking is, this is ready for waxing. It's been sanded to 500 and sealed with sanding sealer. And I'm not too sure what to do here, because the it looks okay to me, right? This is the view most wood turners like, but I'm going to turn the camera here, try and give it a side-on view. Okay, I wonder is that working there, because I can't really see. But that's the side-on view for it, or a right way up view. But that's what we're used to looking at as wood turners. So there's my problem. This here is bigger than this here. And I want to know, are the proportions okay, or do I need to reduce the size of the foot? There's where I'm going to cut it off here. And the reason it ended up that size was because as I was cutting here and looking up at this end, the proportions seemed right, and it just seemed to match nicely. And when I measured it, I realised that it was too big. Well, it might be too big, I don't know. A couple of wee tips about what I've done here. There's a wee thing I discovered just for holding the captive rings. A couple of rubber bands, and it holds them the very best, whatever you saw. So the rings are quite thick, but I wanted that sort of thickness in it. And any of you very astute will notice that the stem is tapered, that it's not the same thickness the whole way down. It's slightly tapered by a couple of mil. I didn't want a dead straight stem. I wanted something a bit different, so it's slightly tapered. I'm happy with what I've done. Now, this is my first ever goblet. I've never done this before. I've never done captive rings before. So it's about 25 hours working this, because I've been going really slowly, and I'm pleased with what I've got so far. But that's bugging me. Is this okay to leave this slightly bigger than this? It's only 3/16 in it, but you know what people are like? Okay, you know what wood turners are like? We're our worst critics, you know. So the other thing I was going to say to you was, I'm going to show you how I set this up. I'm going to just change hands here for a moment. Right, the way I set this up is I'm using wet laurel here. Now, Reverend Doug was interested in this. I think it was him, because I mentioned doing a thing in January where I was roughing down a bowl. Now there's the blank that is roughing down. I became sick in January, and that sat on the lathe like that until basically a month ago, and it hasn't split. This is another piece of the same laurel that was cut down last September, and I'm turning it wet. Now what I do is I turn it and I let it sit for a few hours. I turn it again, let it sit for a few hours, trying to let it dry slowly and encourage the drying, you know. When I got the goblet hollowed out, I had to find some way to stabilize it. So what I have here is I've got a 1x8 spindle revolving center on a Morse taper in the quill here, and then I've got a chuck attached to that. It's very well designed. There's a little plate here that you can use a spanner on and tighten the chuck up onto this, so there's no chance of movement. And then switching hands again, and then what I did was I just used I used a mushroom box that I was making and made it just a bit of a mess of, but I have a taper on it, and the taper fits inside that, and then I just put a piece of cloth around it, a bit of tissue around it just to protect the edge here. So I'm happy enough. Everything seems to be looking okay, but it's just this one thing that's bugging me is that the fact that the base is 3/16 of an inch wider than the widest part of the bowl. Um, Another wee tip just that I got from somebody was, and it does work, I just put that sheet there to get some sort of background. I always put a cloth on the ways to keep them clean when I'm putting any sort of liquids or polishes on the piece. And that lathe is about 5 years old, and look at the ways; they're still very good. I also rub the ways with engine oil, and just a light but once a month. I just give them a rub down with engine oil, and it's cast iron. It absorbs a certain amount of oil, and it does keep the ways good. So there's my question, guys. Um, is that base foot too big, and should I reduce it, or will I ruin the dimensions by reducing it? So there you go. Any help would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Bye bye.